And now to the other big story we're tracking. It's another big vote that the world was watching yesterday. Catalonia's three pro-independence parties, including that of exiled leader Carles Puigdemont, have together won 70 out of a total of 135 seats in Thursday's snap poll to elect a new government in Spain's richest province. But does this really mean separation of Catalonia from Spain? Take a look at this report.
It's being called a slap in the face for Madrid. Voters in the Spanish region of Catalonia have backed pro-independence parties in the regional elections. In Brussels, where former Catalan President Carles Puigdemont has been in self-imposed exile, the champagne corks have been popping.
The Spanish state has been defeated. Rajoy and his allies have lost and have received a slap in the face from the Catalan people.
Puigdemont was pushed out of power after holding what Madrid called an illegal independence referendum and declaring the region's unilateral independence from Spain. The Spanish government called for fresh elections in a hope to quell the separatist movement, but Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy's hopes were dashed. But does the result really mean a separation of Catalonia from Spain? Does it really provide a solution to the ongoing problem? The arithmetics alone tell us that it's complicated. No single party has won an outright majority, but the three separatist parties took 70 seats. They needed 68 to keep their grip on the 135-seat parliament. In order to govern, the pro-independence parties will need to put aside their differences and cobble together a coalition. The situation is further complicated by the fact that if Puigdemont acts on his promise and returns from Brussels, he could still face arrest by the Spanish authorities over the illegal referendum. The other separatist leader, Oriol Junqueras, is already in a Madrid jail over the October referendum. Both Puigdemont and Junqueras' factions will have to make the third party, the Popular Unit candidacy, come around. Without the party on board, they will not cross the 68-seat threshold. Puigdemont is keeping all options open. After a slim majority, he has offered to meet the Spanish Prime Minister for talks without conditions.
I am ready to do it because we should discuss the new political era that is beginning in Catalonia, in the Spanish state and in Europe, which should be an era preceded by political solutions and not by judicial repression, which is this delirious repression in which they have entered.
A sign of just how divisive the Catalonia independence issue has been comes from the fact that it was actually the anti-independent Citizens Party that came away with the most seats, winning 37. Their tally was significantly higher than the last election. While the numbers are not enough for the Citizens Party to form an anti-independence coalition government, the party's leader had a victory speech of her own.
It has been made very clear with this result as the biggest single political force in Catalonia that the social majority in Catalonia is in favor of the union with the rest of Spain and with Europeans. The Nationalist Party will never again be able to speak in the name of all Catalonia because we are all Catalonia.
The Spanish Prime Minister's Conservative Popular Party recorded its worst result in Thursday's election, going from 11 lawmakers to just 3. Mariano Rajoy will now face criticism for a heavy-handed approach towards the Catalans.
I will make an effort to maintain a dialogue with whatever government comes out of these elections in Catalonia, but as I have said, I will also make an effort so that the law is followed, and it is good that I remind you of that. I hope there is a government that abandons unilateral decisions and does not place itself above the law.
If there is one thing this election has shown, it's that the political gulf between Catalan separatists and pro-Madrid nationalists has grown wider. And if it is not bridged soon, both Spain's Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy and Catalan leaders may find themselves facing elections again, this time at both the regional and national level. Bureau Report, WION.
And joining us this evening is Elena Casas Montanez, WION's correspondent with us from Paris. Good evening, Elena. Which way are things going? Can Puigdemont stitch together a coalition of pro-independent parties? What does it look like?
Well, it's going to be very tough, as we heard in that report there. There are a number of divisions among the pro-independence parties, which will only have a working majority if they manage to work out how to work together. Now, the majority of them have renounced unilateral independence, so they did declare independence back in October, but now they've decided that the unilateral route wasn't quite such a good idea. The small left-wing party, though, the CUP, with which they will need to ally in order to form a working coalition, is refusing to renounce the unilateral push towards independence, which does seem to be bringing, or it did seem to be bringing, the previous Catalan government directly into confrontation with Madrid. Then there's the question of who exactly is going to be the next president of Catalonia. Carles Puigdemont, of course, the outgoing regional president, gave a victory speech, essentially, last night in Brussels, and he does seem to be, in normal circumstances, the person best placed to take up his old job. The problem, of course, as we heard there, is that he's fled to Belgium. He's in Brussels now, and his call for talks with Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy, which he wanted to be held either in Brussels or anywhere else outside of Spain, have been rejected by the Prime Minister, who says he must come back to Spain before Rajoy will talk. The problem, of course, is that as soon as Puigdemont steps onto Spanish soil, he will be arrested. So it's hard to see where he can go from here.
So then what's the point of this vote when an overwhelming majority of people in Catalonia have voted saying that they want out of Spain, and yet we know how Madrid feels about this? How do we see the next few months politically playing out in Spain?
Well, all the vote has done has left the two opposing camps more profoundly entrenched in their division, in their previous positions, than ever. Of course, an overwhelming majority of Catalans, or any majority of Catalans, do not support independence. In the illegal referendum, the people who turned out to vote were overwhelmingly people who do support it. But we see in yesterday's poll that actually anti-independence parties won a majority of the votes, even if pro-independence ones won a majority of the seats. That's how narrow the result really is. But as I was saying, we seem to be digging deeper into political crisis in Spain. The ball really is in Mr. Rajoy's court now. Most observers would agree that he needs to offer the new Catalan government some sort of new autonomy deal, new powers, to try and stall off some of the anger that's pushed people towards supporting independence. But he doesn't seem ready to do that, or at least he says he will negotiate with the new government, but not if it's Mr. Puigdemont, essentially, or at least certainly not while he's still under an arrest warrant.
Interesting times ahead for Spain then. Thanks very much, Alina, for joining us this evening and putting things in perspective for how things stand in Spain. With Catalonia's aspirations of independence from Spain set to possibly translate into reality, what are the implications? To understand that, let's first take a look at Catalonia in numbers. There are 4 provinces in Catalonia: Barcelona, Girona, Lerida and Tarragona. 16% of Spain's population lives in Catalonia. It produces approximately 25.6% of Spain's exports. It is also responsible for 19% of Spain's GDP, as well as 20.7% of the country's foreign investment. So we've established that Catalonia is one of Spain's wealthiest and most productive regions. What will Catalonia's divorce mean for the region and Spain and for Europe on the whole? Between 1,500 to 3,000 businesses are estimated to have moved their headquarters out of Catalonia since the referendum on the 1st of October this year and the Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy's muscular response. There are also signs of the region's vital tourism sector being hit, with hotel bookings down and investor confidence dented. And the country as a whole has been dragged into the fray, leading to falling GDP growth forecasts as instability threatens to undo Spain's recent, more positive performance. There are independence movements across Europe which would be emboldened by the Catalan decision in northern Italy, Corsica and Bavaria.